Blood trickled down Dr. Maya Jackson's lip as Officer Brennan towered over her. "Just another troublemaker," he spat. Her fingers closed around the police chief badge in her pocket. Tomorrow was her first day. Tonight, she was gathering evidence. Nobody expected. Before we dive into this shocking story of justice and accountability, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe to catch more true stories of courage against discrimination. What would you do if you were in Maya's position? Let's find out how this powerful woman turned the tables on a corrupt system. Dr. Maya Jackson stepped out of her rental car and looked up at the Westlake City Hall, adjusting her simple blouse and slacks that betrayed nothing of her credentials. 2 PhDs, 15 years as an FBI behavioral analyst, and now, at 48, about to make history as the first black female police chief in this troubled city. The weight of responsibility pressed against her shoulders as heavily as the summer heat. Mayor Richardson had been explicit during their private video calls over the past month about why he had recruited her so aggressively for this position. "Westlake needs transformation, Dr. Jackson. The department has been operating like it's still 1950. She had done her research before accepting the position. Multiple complaints of racial profiling spanning decades. Excessive force cases against minorities that mysteriously disappeared. Cover-ups that everyone in town seemed to know about, but nobody could prove. That was about to change. Maya had convinced the mayor that before officially stepping into her role, she needed to see the department's true culture up close, unfiltered by formal introductions and press releases. "I need to know what happens when they think no one important is watching," she had explained. Richardson had been hesitant, but ultimately agreed to her unorthodox approach. Only he and his most trusted aide knew her true identity for now. To everyone else in Westlake, she would be Maya Wilson, a college professor researching community policing for an academic paper. The deception didn't bother her. The truth would. Maya checked into the Westlake Inn, a modest hotel near downtown. As she unpacked, her fingers brushed against the small framed photo she always traveled with. James. Her younger brother's smile, frozen at 22, still sparked both warmth and a familiar hollow ache in her chest. 20 years ago, James had been shot by police in a case of mistaken identity. The officers claimed he matched the description of an armed robbery suspect. The description had been of a black male, 5'9". James had been 6'3". No weapon was ever found. No charges were ever filed. Maya carefully placed the photo on the nightstand. "This one's for you, little brother," she whispered. For 3 days, Maya methodically explored different neighborhoods in Westlake, noting the stark differences in how officers interacted with citizens. In the predominantly white North Side, police officers smiled, chatted, and moved with relaxed postures. In the mainly black and Latino South Side, those same officers transformed. Backs stiffened, hands hovered near weapons, voices sharpened. Maya documented everything in encrypted notes on her specialized phone, provided by her FBI contacts, who were quietly supporting her mission. By day 4, she had noticed one officer in particular watching her. He appeared at multiple locations, where she conducted her observations, his eyes narrowing whenever they landed on her. The name on his uniform read, Brennan. That afternoon, Maya intentionally parked her car with the front tire just over the yellow line near a fire hydrant. Then she settled in at the coffee shop across the street, opened her laptop, and waited. It took less than 15 minutes. Officer Jason Brennan approached her vehicle, circled it twice, then positioned himself with legs spread in a dominance posture beside the driver's door. His hand moved to his radio, and a satisfied smile crossed his face. Maya took a final sip of her coffee, gathered her materials, and walked casually across the street. Officer Brennan watched her approach, his expression hardening as she drew near. "Is there a problem, officer?" Maya asked pleasantly. "You tell me," Brennan responded, his tone immediately hostile. "Can't read the yellow paint? Or do the rules just not apply to you?" The aggression in his voice was disproportionate to the minor violation, exactly as Maya had anticipated. "I apologize, I didn't realize I was over the line," she said, reaching for her keys. "I'll move it right now." Brennan stepped closer, invading her personal space. License and registration first, and I'll need to know what you're doing taking. Pictures all over town. Maya could smell the coffee and something minty on his breath. I'm a professor conducting research on community dynamics, she explained calmly, retrieving her carefully prepared fake identification. I've been documenting architectural and social patterns in different neighborhoods. Brennan snorted. Right. And I'm the tooth fairy. People like you always have some fancy excuse. People like you. The words hung in the air between them, their meaning unmistakable. Maya catalogued every detail of the interaction in her trained memory, as Brennan unnecessarily called for backup for a simple parking violation. Stand back from the vehicle, Brennan ordered Maya, his hand moving to rest on his holstered weapon, though she had shown no signs of aggression or resistance. Maya complied immediately, her researcher persona firmly in place, even as her analytical mind noted every procedural violation. Officer, I'm confused about why this requires backup. I'm happy to move my car right away, she said, keeping her voice level and non-threatening. Brennan's face hardened. You don't get to question police procedure. That attitude is exactly the problem with you people. Again, the thinly veiled racial animosity hung in his words. Officer Sarah Martinez arrived in a second patrol car, stepping out with a questioning look at the seemingly routine situation. She was young, perhaps early 30s, with dark hair pulled back tightly beneath her cap. Everything okay here? She asked, directing the question to Brennan rather than Maya. Just handling someone who thinks she's above the law, Brennan replied, holding Maya's license and registration. Run this for me, will you? I want to make sure everything checks out. As Martinez returned to her vehicle with Maya's documents, Maya noticed Brennan reach up and switch off his body camera, a direct violation of department policy for any citizen interaction. His hand brushed aside his jacket briefly, revealing a phone in his shirt pocket. The screen showed a lock screen, photo of Brennan and several other officers in hunting gear, rifles raised triumphantly over what appeared to be a deer carcass. More telling was the keychain attached to his belt, partially hidden but unmistakable to Maya's trained eye. A small Confederate flag emblem dangling alongside his department-issued keys. So, Professor Wilson, Brennan said, emphasizing her title with clear skepticism, new to Westlake, are you? What brings you to our little city specifically? Maya maintained her cover flawlessly. Comparative study of mid-sized police departments. Westlake has some interesting demographics that make it ideal for my research. Brennan smirked. And what exactly are you researching about our police department? Community relations across different neighborhoods, Maya replied truthfully. How citizens and officers interact in various contexts. Officer Martinez returned, handing the documents back to Brennan. Everything checks out, she said quietly. Maya caught the slight hesitation in Martinez's posture, the way her eyes flicked between Brennan and Maya with what looked like discomfort. Brennan ignored his colleague's obvious unease and proceeded to write Maya an excessive ticket, adding several fabricated violations beyond the minor parking infraction. That'll be $375, he said with satisfaction, tearing the ticket from his book. Maybe next time you'll think twice before breaking the law in our town. Maya accepted the ticket without argument, knowing it served as perfect evidence for her investigation. Thank you, officers. Have a nice day, she said politely. Officer Martinez nodded slightly, but Brennan merely scoffed. The next morning, Maya entered the Westlake Police Station, ticket in hand. The front desk was staffed by a heavy-set sergeant, whose nameplate read Thompson. His eyes flicked up at her approach, then immediately back down to his computer screen. Can I help you? He asked without looking at her. I'd like to file a complaint about an officer's conduct during a traffic stop yesterday, Maya stated clearly. Sergeant Thompson sighed heavily, as if her request was the most burdensome thing he'd encountered all day. Complaint forms are over. There he gestured vaguely toward a nearly empty rack on the far wall. Fill it out, bring it back. Maya located the form and completed it meticulously, documenting Brennan's behavior, his deactivation of his body camera, and the excessive nature of the ticket. When she returned it to Thompson, he barely glanced at it before dropping it into a drawer. Someone will review it, he muttered, How long does the review process typically take? Maya inquired. Thompson shrugged. Depends. Couple weeks, maybe longer. Will I receive notification of the outcome? Maya pressed. Thompson finally looked directly at her, irritation evident. Look, lady, we've got real police work to do. You'll hear something if there's something to hear. As Maya turned to leave, she noticed her complaint form sliding beneath several other papers in Thompson's drawer. That evening, Maya met with Jordan Williams, a local community activist whose name had appeared repeatedly in her research. They sat in a quiet corner of a small cafe well away from the police station. Jordan, a tall man in his early 60s, with close-cropped grey hair and intense eyes, had initially been suspicious of Maya's professor cover story. We get a lot of researchers who are really just looking to discredit our experiences, he explained. But after an hour of conversation, he began to open up. Officer Brennan? Oh, we know him well, Jordan said grimly when Maya mentioned her encounter. He's part of the old guard, third-generation cop. His daddy was chief about 15 years back, retired under a cloud, but nothing ever stuck to him. Jordan introduced Maya to several other black residents who shared their experiences with Westlake Police, particularly Brennan. Stopped for fitting, descriptions, searched without cause, homes entered on anonymous tips that never panned out, complaints filed that mysteriously disappeared. Maya recorded everything with their permission, building her case methodically. Nothing ever changes, said one woman, a teacher who described being pulled over 8 times in 1 month without ever receiving a ticket. They protect their own. Maybe this time will be different, Maya said, thinking of the badge still hidden in her hotel room safe. Late that night, using secure FBI database access, Maya dug deeper into Officer Brennan's history. Multiple excessive force complaints, all dismissed. 3 shootings, all ruled justified with minimal investigation. A pattern of targeting black and Latino civilians that was obvious in the data, but had never been officially acknowledged. Maya closed her laptop and stared out at the Westlake skyline from her hotel window. The corruption ran deep, but she was just getting started. The more Maya dug into Officer Jason Brennan's background, the clearer the picture became. Born into Westlake police royalty, his grandfather had been a captain in the 60s, his father the chief until 15 years ago. What caused the senior Brennan's sudden retirement remained officially classified as personal reasons, but Maya's FBI contacts had unearthed whispers of evidence tampering and brutality complaints that had been buried through political connections. The apple hadn't fallen far from the poisoned tree. Maya's research revealed disturbing connections between the Brennan family and several known white supremacist groups dating back decades. Nothing overt enough to trigger dismissal, but donations, attended rallies, and social media connections painted a troubling picture. Even more concerning was what Maya discovered about the Guardians, an unofficial clique within the Westlake Police Department led by Brennan. Officers who displayed a particular small shield insignia on their personal vehicles were part of this inner circle that protected each other from complaints and scrutiny. The symbol appeared innocuous, but Maya recognized it as nearly identical to imagery used by white nationalist police groups in the 1960s. Were you aware that police departments can develop these dangerous internal cliques that operate above the law? Comment number 1 if you believe there should be federal oversight of police departments with histories of discrimination. Like this video if you think more undercover investigations like Maya's are needed to expose corruption. Don't forget how to subscribe for more stories of courage against injustice. What would you do if you discovered your local police had a secret group protecting racist officers? As Maya compiled her evidence in her hotel room, a text message from an unknown number appeared on her phone. Need to talk, not at station, about Brennan, Maple Street Park, 8 p.m. Maya took extensive precautions before arriving at the meeting point, scanning for surveillance, carrying 2 different recording devices, and notifying her FBI contact of her location. Officer Sarah Martinez was already seated on a bench when Maya arrived, still in uniform, but with a civilian jacket covering most of her police identifiers. "I shouldn't be here," Martinez said immediately, her voice barely above a whisper. "If they find out I talked to you, I understand the risk, Maya assured her. Whatever you tell me stays confidential. Martinez's hands trembled slightly. I joined the force to help people. My family, we came from nothing. I wanted to make a difference, you know, but this department... She trailed off, looking around nervously. Brennan and his circle, they run everything. They call the shots on who gets promoted, who gets the good assignments. They falsify reports. I've seen them plant evidence on black suspects. Why haven't you reported this? Maya asked, though she already knew the answer. Martinez gave a bitter laugh. To who? Internal Affairs is run by Brennan's cousin. The last officer who filed a complaint was found with drugs in his locker the next day. Planted, obviously, but it was enough to fire him. Another one had her tires slashed. Threatening notes left on her car. The message is clear, stay in line or else. Over the next hour, Martinez provided specific instances, dates, and names. Maya recorded everything. The racial profiling is systematic, Martinez explained. They call it tactical enforcement, but it's just an excuse to harass people of color. Black drivers are 8 times more likely to be searched than white drivers in Westlake, but the contraband hit rate is actually higher for whites. After Martinez left, Maya spent the next week gathering more evidence. She befriended a bartender at the Blue Line, a bar frequented by Westlake officers after their shifts. Posing as a writer interested in police stories, she overheard officers, including Brennan, joking openly about racial profiling. "How you always check the trunk when it's a Cadillac with tinted windows?" One officer laughed. "Probable cause? Just say you smelled marijuana. Works every time," replied another. Maya witnessed Brennan and 3 other officers harassing a group of black teenagers playing basketball in a public park. The teens weren't violating any ordinances, but the officers forced them to disperse, checking IDs and running warrant searches on each one. When Maya began recording the interaction from a distance, Brennan noticed her and approached aggressively. "You again," he said, recognition and suspicion darkening his features. "Seems like you're always around when I'm working. Coincidence?" "Just conducting my research, officer," Maya replied calmly, though her heart pounded. Brennan stepped closer. "What did you say your paper was about again?" "Community policing strategies," Maya answered. "Specifically how officer interactions differ across various neighborhoods." Something dangerous flashed in Brennan's eyes. "You know, Professor, people who stick their noses where they don't belong tend to find trouble in this town." The threat wasn't subtle. "Is that an official police warning, Officer Brennan?" Maya asked, her phone still recording. "Because it sounds remarkably like a threat." Brennan's radio crackled with another call, saving Maya from whatever might have come next. "We'll continue this conversation another time," he promised ominously, before returning to his patrol car. That night, Maya accessed the police record system remotely using credentials provided by her FBI contact. She discovered 3 excessive force complaints against Brennan in the past year alone, all from black citizens, all mysteriously closed, without investigation. In one case, hospital records showed a suspect with a broken jaw and 3 fractured ribs, but the official report claimed the man had fallen while resisting arrest. As Maya photographed these documents with her specialized equipment, a noise in the hallway outside the records room froze her in place. She quickly shut down the computer and slipped into a supply closet just as the door opened. Through the thin crack, she saw Sergeant Thompson enter with another officer. "Brennan says something's not right about that professor woman," Thompson was saying. "Wants us to keep an eye out for anything suspicious." "You think she's IA?" the other officer asked. Thompson snorted. "Nah, IA would have approached us officially. But she's something. Brennan thinks maybe a journalist or one of those civil rights lawyers. Should we run a deeper check on her?" Maya held her breath. "Already did," Thompson replied. "Everything looks legitimate on the surface. University credentials check out. But Brennan's got a feeling, and his instincts are usually right." The officers left after retrieving some forms, and Maya waited 10 more minutes before slipping out, her heart pounding but her evidence secure. The stakes had just gotten higher. Someone was digging into her cover, and it was only a matter of time before they found the inconsistencies that would inevitably exist in any undercover identity. Maya needed to accelerate her investigation before her cover was blown. Maya noticed the patrol car almost immediately the next morning. It followed at a distance as she drove to a local diner for breakfast, parking across the street with a clear view of the entrance. Officer Brennan wasn't being subtle anymore. He wanted her to know she was being watched. Over coffee, Maya reviewed her mental checklist. She had solid evidence of racial profiling, procedural violations, and several instances of excessive force. But to truly clean house, she needed to connect more dots and identify all the major players in the department's toxic culture. Tonight's community meeting would be the perfect opportunity to observe officers under pressure and possibly gather more testimonies from affected citizens. The meeting was held at Westlake Community Center, a weathered building in the predominantly black east side of town. By the time Maya arrived, the main hall was already packed with over 100 residents. The tension in the air was palpable as City Council member Rodriguez introduced the purpose of the gathering. "We're here to discuss concerns about policing in our community and work toward constructive solutions." Maya took a seat in the back row, noting the 6 uniformed officers standing along the wall, including Brennan and Sergeant Thompson. Their postures were defensive, arms crossed, expressions ranging from boredom to barely concealed hostility. For the first hour, residents shared story after story of mistreatment. A grandmother described being handcuffed in front of her grandchildren during a mistaken raid on her home. A college student detailed being thrown against a wall during a stop for a broken taillight. A local pastor recounted how officers had disrupted a community youth program, claiming they'd received reports of suspicious activity. Throughout these testimonies, Maya observed the officers' reactions. Most stared straight ahead, expressionless, but Brennan and 2 others exchanged smirks during particularly emotional accounts. When Rodriguez asked for response from the department representatives, Sergeant Thompson stepped forward with a prepared statement about following procedures and ensuring public safety, without acknowledging any specific concerns. The crowd grew restless. "You're not listening to us," someone shouted from the back. "It's the same excuses every time," called another. As the meeting threatened to dissolve into chaos, Maya stood. "I have a question," she said clearly, her voice cutting through the noise. The room quieted. "Officer Brennan," she addressed him directly, "could you explain why your body camera was turned off during my traffic stop last week? Department Policy Section 4.3 requires cameras to remain active during all civilian interactions." Brennan's eyes narrowed dangerously. "And how would a visiting professor be familiar with our department policies?" "Public record," Maya replied smoothly, "available on the city website, along with the statistics showing that black drivers in Westlake are 8 times more likely to be stopped and searched than white drivers. Would you care to explain that discrepancy?" The room erupted in applause and shouts of agreement. Brennan stepped forward, face flushed with anger, but Sergeant Thompson put a restraining hand on his arm. "This meeting is about constructive dialogue, not accusations," Thompson said into the microphone. "We'll take these concerns under advisement." The non-answer further inflamed the crowd. As residents shouted questions, the officers moved toward the exit. Maya felt Brennan's glare burning into her as he left. The following morning, Maya discovered Brennan had been busy. Her hotel room had clearly been searched while she attended a lunch meeting with Jordan Williams. Nothing was obviously missing, but small items had been moved, and her laptop showed signs of tampering. Fortunately, all her real evidence was stored on encrypted devices, hidden in specially designed compartments in her luggage. A call from Mayor Richardson confirmed her suspicions. "Dr. Jackson," he said when she answered, using her real name. "For the first time since she'd arrived in Westlake, we may have a problem. Councilman Pierce is pushing to rescind your appointment before you even start. Claims he's heard concerning things about your background." "Brennan's digging," Maya concluded. "Yes, and he has allies on the council. Pierce specifically mentioned your brother's case and suggested you have a personal vendetta against police." Maya's jaw tightened. Her brother's death was public record, but connecting it to her current assignment suggested deeper investigation than a simple background check. "How much time do I have?" "The council meets in 4 days. Pierce wants a special session to reconsider your appointment." "Then I need to work faster," Maya said. "I already have substantial evidence, but I need more to ensure we can clean house completely." Later that day, Maya learned that Officer Martinez had been reassigned to night shift in the most remote part of the district, a clear punishment for some perceived infraction. When Maya managed to contact her, Martinez was frightened. "Someone saw us talking at the park, I don't know who, but word got back to Brennan. This assignment is a message." Through her FBI contacts, Maya located 3 former Westlake officers who had left the department after attempting to report misconduct. One had moved to another state, fearing retaliation. Another had left law enforcement entirely. The third, Robert Chen, agreed to meet Maya at a restaurant 30 miles outside. "Westlake. I tried to do the right thing," Chen explained over coffee, his voice low despite the distance from Westlake. "Witnessed Brennan and 2 others beat a handcuffed suspect, a young black kid who'd done nothing but run his mouth. Filed the report, exactly according to protocol. 2 days later, I'm under investigation for time card fraud. A month later, I'm pushed out with the choice to resign or be fired." Chen provided names, dates, and specific instances of corruption that extended beyond racial bias into potentially criminal territory. "It's not just the profiling and excessive force," he revealed. "There's money involved too. Certain drug arrests that never make it to the books, evidence that disappears, cash that never reaches the property room." That evening, while observing traffic stops from a discreet distance, Maya witnessed something that turned her stomach. Brennan pulled over a black motorist for allegedly rolling through a stop sign. While his partner distracted the driver with questions, Brennan clearly slipped something into the back seat of the car. Minutes later, he discovered a small bag of what appeared to be drugs during his search. Maya recorded the entire incident from her parked car. When the driver protested his innocence, Brennan became physically aggressive, slamming him against the vehicle. Unable to merely observe any longer, Maya emerged from her car. "Excuse me, officers," she called, approaching with her phone visibly recording. "Is there a problem here?" Brennan's head snapped toward her, rage flashing across his features. "Return to your vehicle immediately, ma'am. This is a police matter." "I've been recording this traffic stop," Maya stated calmly, including what appeared to be something being placed in the back seat before it was found. The motorist looked at Maya with sudden hope. "She saw you. She saw what you did." Brennan advanced toward Maya, hand moving to his weapon. "You're interfering with a police investigation. One more word and you're under arrest." His partner looked increasingly uncomfortable, eyes darting between Brennan and Maya. "I'm well within my legal rights to record police activity in public," Maya countered, standing her ground while continuing to film. "And this gentleman is entitled to due process without evidence being planted." Brennan was inches from her now, trembling with barely controlled fury. "You have exactly 3 seconds to get back in your car and leave, or I swear to God you'll regret it." The naked threat hung in the air between them. Maya maintained eye contact, but took a step back, knowing that pushing further could endanger both herself and the motorist. "I have this entire interaction recorded," she said clearly, "including that threat, Officer Brennan." She turned to the motorist. "Sir, remember that you have the right to remain silent and to request an attorney. Don't consent to any searches." Brennan's hand shot out, shoving Maya backward. "That's it, you're under arrest for obstruction." His partner intervened. "Jason, there are witnesses, let it go, we've got cameras on us." Seething, Brennan backed down but pointed a finger in Maya's face. "This isn't over, not by a long shot." The incident spread quickly through Westlake's black community. Someone had captured video of Maya confronting the officers, and by morning it had been shared hundreds of times on social media. Jordan Williams called to warn her. "Brennan's union is pushing back hard. They've released a statement claiming you assaulted him and interfered with a legitimate drug arrest." That afternoon, Maya found a note slipped under her hotel room door. In crude block letters, it read, "Leave Westlake now or suffer the consequences." The threat only strengthened her resolve. In 3 days, she would officially become chief, and the real work of cleaning up the department would begin. But first, she needed to survive until then. Maya arranged to meet with Lieutenant Harris from Internal Affairs, carefully setting up the meeting at a public location, a coffee shop downtown. The man who arrived matched the photo in the department directory, mid-50s, balding, with a perpetual frown etched into his features. Professor Wilson, he greeted her without offering to shake hands. I understand you've been making quite a stir in our community. Maya recognized the hostility beneath his professional veneer. I've been researching police-community relations, she replied carefully. My observations have raised some concerns. Concerns, Harris repeated flatly, like publicly accusing one of our officers of evidence tampering, interfering with a legitimate arrest, creating division at community meetings. Maya maintained her composure. I recorded Officer Brennan placing something in a vehicle before finding it during a search. That's not an accusation. It's documentation of a fact. Harris leaned forward. Do you know how many drug dealers we take off the streets every month? How many violent criminals? Our officers put their lives on the line, while academics like you second-guess their methods from the safety of your ivory towers. The conversation continued in this vein for nearly 20 minutes, with Harris defending the department unconditionally. While probing for details about Maya's research and sources, Maya revealed nothing substantive, recognizing the meeting for what it was, intelligence gathering, not a genuine investigation. As they parted, Harris's parting words confirmed her suspicions. I'd be careful about making enemies in a town you're just visiting, Professor. Accidents happen. 2 hours later, Maya's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Vacant property at 1478 Oakwood. Evidence of police misconduct hidden there. Come alone. 9 p.m. Maya immediately recognized the setup. The address was in an abandoned industrial area, perfect for an ambush. Still, it presented an opportunity to push Brennan into making a mistake that would further expose him. Maya contacted Jordan Williams, giving him the address and a clear instruction. If you don't hear from me by 10 p.m., call this number. She provided him with Mayor Richardson's direct line. Tell him Dr. Maya Jackson needs assistance. Jordan's eyes widened at the name. Jackson, not Wilson. I'll explain everything. Tomorrow, Maya promised. But tonight I need you to be my insurance policy. The sun was setting as Maya drove to the address, her recorder active, a tracking device in her shoe, and a small canister of pepper spray concealed in her jacket pocket. The building was a derelict warehouse, its windows boarded, surrounded by overgrown weeds. Maya parked in plain sight and approached the main entrance, flashlight in hand. Hello, she called, pushing open the rusted door. I got your message about evidence. Her voice echoed through the empty space. Footsteps sounded from the shadows, and Officer Brennan emerged, still in uniform, 2 other officers flanking him. Maya recognized them from the Guardian's photos. She'd uncovered. Professor Wilson, Brennan said, his tone mockingly formal. Or should I say, the woman who's been poking her nose into business that doesn't concern her. Public safety concerns everyone, Officer Brennan, Maya replied steadily, counting exits and assessing distances, especially when officers violate the trust placed in them. Brennan stepped closer. You know, we did some more digging into your background. Interesting things turned up. Your university position seems legitimate enough, but no one in your department has heard of any research. Project in Westlake. Strange, isn't it? My work is funded through a separate grant, Maya improvised smoothly. I maintain a degree of independence from the department. And your convenient appearance at multiple incident scenes, your detailed knowledge of our policies and procedures, the way you specifically focus on me and my fellow officers. The other officers moved to block the main exit. You're not a professor, Brennan continued. You're something else. A civil rights attorney, FBI, some activist, looking to make a name for yourself with edited videos and out-of-context accusations. I'm exactly who I say I am, Maya stated. Someone concerned about the pattern of misconduct I've observed in this department, racial profiling, excessive force, evidence tampering, intimidation tactics. Maya listed off specific incidents, dates and officers involved, watching Brennan's face darken with each accurate detail she revealed. The old man at Jefferson Park last month who ended up with 3 broken ribs, Darrell Washington, pulled over 17 times in 6 weeks without a single citation, the missing evidence in the Phillips case, the threatening notes left on Officer Chen's car before he resigned. Brennan's expression shifted from anger to something more dangerous. You've been busy, he said quietly. Too busy. You have no idea what you've stepped into, lady. This isn't just about traffic stops and hurt feelings. There are powerful people who depend on this department operating exactly as it is. Powerful people involved in skimming drug money, Maya suggested, watching the shock register on the other officers' faces. Or powerful people who need certain evidence to disappear. Which is it, Brennan? Brennan moved with unexpected speed. His hand shot out, grabbing Maya's jacket and revealing the small recording device clipped inside. "What the hell is this?" he snarled, ripping it free and throwing it to the ground. His boot came down hard, crushing the device. "You're recording me, in a private conversation." "There's nothing private about discussing police corruption," Maya replied, fighting to keep her voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through her system. "And everything you're doing right now is being documented." Brennan's face contorted with rage. "You smug bitch," he spat, and his fist connected with Maya's jaw before she could dodge. The impact sent her staggering backward, the metallic taste of blood filling her mouth as she fought to stay on her feet. "Jason!" One of the other officers grabbed his arm. "What the hell are you doing?" "Teaching her a lesson," Brennan growled, shaking free of his colleague's grip. "No one threatens what we've built here, no one." The warehouse door burst open, and Officer Martinez entered with 2 other patrol officers, weapons drawn. "Westlake PD, everyone freeze," Martinez shouted, her voice firm despite the fear evident in her eyes. "Officer Brennan, step away from her now." Brennan turned in shock. "Martinez, what the hell do you think you're doing?" "Stopping you from making an even bigger mistake," Martinez replied, her weapon trained steadily on Brennan. "Ms. Wilson called in a threat to dispatch before coming here, said she feared for her safety." Maya silently thanked Martinez for the quick thinking, realizing the young officer must have been monitoring the radio calls. Brennan wasn't backing down. "This woman is interfering with police business, possibly a plant from IA or the feds. We were conducting a legitimate interrogation." "By punching her in the face?" Martinez questioned, her disgust evident. "That looked a lot like assault to me, and my body camera caught all of it." The mention of the camera sent Brennan into further rage. "Turn that thing off. This is Guardian." "Business?" The slip confirmed everything Maya had been investigating. One of the officers with Martinez looked confused. "Guardian business? What does that mean?" Brennan realized his mistake too late. His expression hardened as he seemed to calculate his options. Finally, he pointed at Maya. "She's under arrest, trespassing, interfering with police operations, possible conspiracy charges pending investigation." "On what grounds?" Maya challenged, dabbing at her bleeding lip. "This is a public meeting you arranged via text message." "She assaulted me," Brennan declared suddenly. "Came at me with that pepper spray in her pocket. Self-defense." The officers exchanged uncertain glances, but Brennan's authority still held sway. "Cuff her," he ordered Martinez. "Take her in, I'll file the charges myself." Martinez hesitated, clearly torn between her duty and what she'd witnessed. "Now, officer," Brennan barked, "or you're facing insubordination charges on top of the bogus harassment claim in your file." Reluctantly, Martinez approached Maya. "I'm sorry," she whispered as she applied the handcuffs, deliberately leaving them looser than standard procedure. "This isn't right." "It's okay," Maya murmured back. "Just follow procedure for now." At the station, Maya was processed like any other suspect. Brennan made a show of documenting his injuries, a small scratch on his hand that had likely occurred when he destroyed her recording device. Maya remained silent, refusing to answer questions, watching as the corrupt system she was about to dismantle operated exactly as she'd expected. She was placed in a holding cell, her requests for medical attention for her swelling jaw ignored by the desk sergeant, who was clearly one of Brennan's allies. Through the small window in the cell door, Maya could see Brennan in conference with several other officers, including Lieutenant Harris from Internal Affairs. They spoke in hushed tones, occasionally glancing toward her cell. The discussion appeared heated at times, with Harris repeatedly shaking his head, while Brennan gestured emphatically. Maya checked her watch. Almost 3 hours had passed since her arrest. Jordan Williams would have called the mayor by now. The pieces were about to fall into place. As if on cue, the station's front doors burst open, and Mayor Richardson strode in, flanked by his aide, and a woman Maya recognized as the city attorney. "Where is she?" the mayor demanded, his voice carrying clearly to Maya's cell. "Where is the woman brought in tonight?" The desk sergeant stood, clearly flustered by the mayor's unexpected appearance. "Sir, we have several detainees processing right now. If you could clarify—" "Don't play games with me, Thompson," Richardson cut him off. "The woman Officer Brennan arrested tonight. I want to see her immediately." Brennan stepped forward. "Mayor Richardson, with all due respect, this is a police matter. We have procedures. And I have the authority to oversee this department," Richardson interrupted. "Open the cell now, or I'm calling the state police to do it for me." The standoff lasted several tense seconds before Sergeant Thompson reluctantly reached for his keys. As the cell door opened, Maya stood tall, despite her bruised face and bloodied lip. The moment of revelation was about to begin. Mayor Richardson's face darkened with anger as he saw Maya's condition. "My God," he breathed, taking in her swollen jaw and the dried blood on her lip. "What have they done to you?" Brennan stepped forward defensively. "Sir, this woman was interfering with a police investigation and assaulted an officer. We followed standard procedure." The mayor turned to Sergeant Thompson. "Get these handcuffs off her immediately and call for medical assistance." Thompson hesitated, looking to Brennan for guidance. "Now, Sergeant," Richardson barked with such authority that Thompson fumbled with the keys and quickly removed Maya's restraints. Brennan wasn't backing down. "Mayor, with all due respect, you're interfering with police business. This woman has been causing problems all over town, showing up at crime scenes, making accusations against officers, stirring up the community with false claims." "Is that so?" Richardson asked, his tone dangerously calm. "And did these alleged activities justify physical assault while she was in custody?" Officers had begun to gather around the commotion, including Martinez and several others, who looked confused by the mayor's personal interest in a seemingly routine arrest. Brennan's jaw tightened. "She resisted arrest and became combative. Any force used was completely justified and by the book. I think it's time we clarify exactly who this woman is," Richardson said, nodding to Maya. "Would you like to introduce yourself properly, Doctor?" Maya straightened her posture, despite the pain in her jaw. "My name is Dr. Maya Jackson," she announced clearly. "I hold PhDs in criminal justice and behavioral psychology, served 15 years with the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit, specializing in law enforcement misconduct, and have consulted for 37 police departments nationwide on reform initiatives." She paused, letting the information sink in before delivering the final revelation. "And as of tomorrow morning, I am the new Chief of Police for the Westlake Police Department." The station fell completely silent. Brennan's face drained of color, his mouth opening and closing without sound. Sergeant Thompson dropped the keys he was still holding, the clatter echoing through the hushed room. "That's impossible," Brennan finally managed. "The new chief isn't due until next week, and the council was considering a different candidate altogether." "The council confirmed Dr. Jackson's appointment last month," Richardson corrected. "The start date was moved up at my request, and Dr. Jackson suggested an undercover assessment before officially taking command." He turned to address the gathered officers. "Dr. Jackson is a nationally recognized expert in police reform with an unparalleled record of transforming troubled departments. She specifically requested the opportunity to experience Westlake's policing firsthand, without the filter of official introductions and prepared presentations." The implications were sinking in across the room. Several officers looked stricken, as they mentally reviewed their interactions with the woman they'd known as Professor Wilson. Others appeared confused or stunned. Martinez had a hand over her mouth, eyes wide with shock. Have you ever witnessed someone in authority abuse their position, only to face unexpected consequences? Comment number 1, if you believe Maya's undercover, approach was justified. Or number 2, if you think she should have been transparent from the start. Hit that like button if you're relieved to see Brennan finally facing accountability, and subscribe to catch more stories of justice prevailing. Against all odds, what do you think will happen to the corrupt officers now that Maya's true identity has been revealed? Let's find out as the story continues. "This is a setup," Brennan declared, desperation creeping into his voice. Some kind of entrapment scheme. Maya addressed him directly for the first time. "Officer Brennan, there's no entrapment in observing officers' natural behavior. I didn't induce you to violate procedures, falsify reports, plant evidence, or assault a civilian. Those were your choices made when you thought no one who mattered was watching." She turned to face the other officers. "My purpose here wasn't to build a case against any individual officer, but to understand the department's culture and practices without the benefit of warning or preparation. What I've witnessed in the past 2 weeks will inform the changes that begin tomorrow." The city attorney stepped forward. "Dr. Jackson, do you wish to press charges against Officer Brennan for assault?" "I do," Maya confirmed, "along with false imprisonment, filing a false police report, and violation of civil rights under color of authority." Brennan's face had moved from shock to fury. "This is all a lie. She's twisting everything to fit her agenda." He turned to his fellow officers. "You know me. 20 years on the force following in my father's footsteps. Are you really going to let this outsider come in and destroy everything we've built?" A few officers shifted uncomfortably, but most remained silent, clearly processing the sudden power shift and its implications for their careers. Maya reached into her jacket pocket and removed her official credentials and badge. "I understand this is shocking for many of you. Change always is. But I want to be clear. My goal isn't to punish officers who've served this community with integrity. It's to ensure that the Westlake Police Department upholds its oath to protect and serve all citizens equally, regardless of race, income, or neighborhood." She met the eyes of several officers as she spoke. "Some of you have been uncomfortable with practices you've witnessed but felt powerless to address. Others may have participated in misconduct because it seemed expected or necessary for advancement. Beginning tomorrow, those dynamics change completely." Officer Martinez stepped forward, her voice shaking slightly. "Dr. Jackson is telling the truth about what happened tonight. Officer Brennan lured her to that warehouse and assaulted her when she referenced his misconduct. My body camera footage confirms it." The betrayal on Brennan's face was palpable. "Martinez, you're finished," he hissed. "The Guardians will make sure you never work in law enforcement again." "The Guardians are finished, Officer Brennan," Maya stated firmly, "along with any other cliques, unofficial groups, or practices that undermine equal justice in this department." She turned to address all the officers again. "I've documented numerous instances of racial profiling, excessive force, evidence tampering, and retaliatory actions against officers who attempted to report misconduct. This evidence has been secured off-site and reviewed by both the mayor's office and representatives from the Department of Justice. The mention of federal involvement caused visible reactions across the room. Several officers began whispering urgently to each other. Starting immediately, Officer Brennan is suspended, pending criminal charges and termination proceedings," Maya continued. "Lieutenant Harris, Sergeant Thompson, Officers Reeves, Conrad, and Delgado are also suspended, pending investigation of specific documented incidents." The named officers looked stunned, several beginning to protest before Mayor Richardson raised his hand for silence. "These decisions have been reviewed and approved by the city attorney and myself," he stated. "Any further disruption will only add to the charges." He nodded to 2 uniformed state troopers who had entered during the commotion. "These officers will escort Officer Brennan to processing." As Brennan was led away, still protesting, Maya addressed the remaining officers once more. "Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., I will hold my first official briefing as your chief. All officers are required to attend, including those on regular days off. We will discuss the path forward for this department and this community." Her gaze swept the room. "Some of you will choose to resign rather than adapt to new standards and oversight. That is your right. Others will embrace this opportunity to serve with renewed purpose and integrity. Either way, the Westlake Police Department changes, beginning now." As the gathering dispersed, Officer Martinez approached Maya hesitantly. "Chief, I don't know what to say. If I'd known who you were—" "You would have behaved differently," Maya finished for her, "which is precisely why I couldn't tell you. Your actions tonight, coming to my aid despite the risk to your career, tell me everything I need to know about your character. Officer Martinez. Martinez nodded, tears welling in her eyes. There are good cops here, Chief. People who want to do the right thing but have been afraid. I know, Maya assured her, and they won't have to be afraid anymore. As paramedics finally arrived to examine Maya's injuries, Mayor Richardson stood beside her. This was more dramatic than I anticipated when we discussed your undercover approach, he admitted. Are you sure you still want this job? Maya touched her swollen jaw gingerly. More than ever, Mr. Mayor, more than ever. The sun rose over Westlake the next morning on a police department in turmoil. Officers arrived for Maya's 9 a.m. briefing to find news vans parked outside the station and a crowd of curious citizens gathering across the street. Inside, the Kyiv atmosphere was tense as officers filled the briefing room, their expressions ranging from openly hostile to cautiously hopeful. At precisely 9, Maya entered wearing her full chief's uniform for the first time. The bruising on her jaw was partially concealed with makeup, but still visible, a physical reminder of last night's confrontation. Good morning, she began, her voice clear and authoritative. For those who weren't present last night, I am Dr. Maya Jackson, your new chief of police. My introduction to this department was unconventional by design, allowing me to witness firsthand how officers conduct themselves when they believe no one in authority is watching. She let her gaze move across the room. What I observed was deeply troubling. Systematic racial profiling, excessive force, evidence tampering, retaliation against whistleblowers, a toxic culture where misconduct was protected rather than corrected. Murmurs spread through the assembled officers until Maya raised her hand for silence. Effective immediately, Officer Jason Brennan, Lieutenant Robert Harris, Sergeant James Thompson, Officers Kevin Reeves, Michael Conrad, and Thomas Delgado are suspended pending investigation of specific documented incidents. Brennan faces criminal charges for assault, false imprisonment, and civil rights violations. She paused as the reality sank in. I understand that Officer Brennan and others have cultivated loyalties within this department. Some of you may feel anger or resentment toward me for these actions. You have a choice to make. You can resign and seek employment elsewhere, or you can commit to the new standards and practices that will define this department moving forward. Maya outlined the immediate changes. Mandatory body cameras always activated during civilian interactions, new documentation requirements for stops, searches, and use of force incidents, a civilian review board with actual authority, implicit bias training, and community service requirements in all neighborhoods. These are non-negotiable, she stated firmly. Any officer unwilling to abide by these standards should submit their resignation by the end of the day. As the briefing concluded, Maya noticed a clear division forming. About a third of the officers looked openly resentful. Another third seemed uncertain but willing to adapt, and the final third, including Martinez, showed cautious optimism. Outside, the police union representative was already giving a statement to the gathered press. This ambush appointment and these suspensions violate department procedures and union contracts. We will be filing formal grievances and considering legal action against the city. Maya had anticipated this response. When reporters turned to her for comment as she exited the station, she was prepared. The evidence gathered during my assessment will withstand any scrutiny, she stated calmly. The citizens of Westlake deserve a police department that serves and protects everyone equally. That's not a political position. It's the oath every officer swears to uphold. By noon, the story had exploded nationally. Undercover police chief exposes racism, read one headline. Chief assaulted by her own officer, declared another. Maya's phone rang constantly with calls from other departments, civil rights organizations, and media outlets. Meanwhile, the suspended officers weren't going quietly. Brennan, released on bail that morning, held an impromptu press conference from his front lawn. This so-called investigation was a setup from the beginning, he declared, his family standing supportively behind him. Dr. Jackson came to Westlake with an agenda to dismantle a department that has successfully kept this community safe for generations. She deliberately provoked officers and misrepresented routine police work as misconduct. His voice cracked with emotion that Maya suspected was entirely calculated. My family has served this department for 3 generations. My father and grandfather would be ashamed to see their legacy destroyed by political correctness and false accusations. The police union filed emergency injunctions, attempting to block the suspensions and Maya's appointment, claiming procedural violations. Mayor Richardson stood firm, publicly backing Maya's actions and releasing selected evidence that made the union's position increasingly untenable. Former victims of police misconduct began coming forward, emboldened by the changes. Jordan Williams organized them into a coherent voice, scheduling interviews and helping them document their experiences. For the record, the FBI officially opened an investigation into the department's practices, sending agents to secure records before they could be destroyed. That evening, Maya returned to her hotel to find the door ajar. Inside, racial slurs had been spray-painted across the walls and her personal belongings scattered. The message was clear: the fight was just beginning. The next morning, Maya moved into a temporary apartment with security provided by state police while she searched for permanent housing. 7 officers submitted resignations, all known associates of Brennan and his Guardian clique. Another dozen requested transfers to other departments. Maya had expected this attrition and already had recruitment plans in place, focusing on officers with proven community policing skills and candidates from diverse backgrounds. 5 days after taking command, Maya held her first town hall meeting at the community center. The room was packed beyond capacity, with residents spilling out the doors. "I'm here to listen," Maya began simply. "For too long, certain communities in Westlake have been over-policed and underserved. That changes now. But I need your help to get it right." For 3 hours, she took questions, listened to concerns, and outlined her vision for the department. The atmosphere shifted gradually from skepticism to cautious hope. Not everyone was supportive. As Maya left the meeting, she encountered a group of protesters, mostly white citizens from the north side of town, carrying signs reading, "Support our police" and "Jackson go home." Among them were Brennan's wife and father, the latter a formidable figure despite his 70 years. "You've destroyed my son's life with your witch hunt," the elder Brennan accused, stepping into Maya's path. "This department was fine until you came along with your quota hiring and sensitivity training nonsense." Maya met his gaze steadily. "Your son assaulted me for questioning his misconduct, Mr. Brennan. He planted evidence, falsified reports, and led a group that intimidated fellow officers into silence. If that represents what you consider fine, then yes, I intend to completely transform this department." The confrontation was captured by news cameras, further polarizing the community. While many residents celebrated the changes, others, particularly in wealthier neighborhoods, expressed concerns about lowered standards and handcuffing officers trying to do their jobs. Through it all, Maya maintained her focus on measurable improvements. Body cameras were now mandatory and functioning during all civilian interactions. Traffic stop data was published weekly, showing gradually decreasing racial disparities. A new anonymous reporting system allowed officers to flag misconduct without fear of retaliation. Officer Martinez, promoted to Community Outreach Coordinator, developed partnerships with schools, churches, and neighborhood associations that had previously viewed police with suspicion. 3 weeks into Maya's tenure, Brennan's criminal trial began. The evidence was damning. Body camera footage from Martinez showing the assault, testimony from other officers present, Maya's documented injuries, and a pattern of similar incidents in Brennan's history that were now being revealed. The defense attempted to portray Maya as an activist with an agenda who had manipulated situations to provoke officers. Dr. Jackson created scenarios designed to elicit negative responses, Brennan's attorney argued. She approached officers with an antagonistic attitude, inserted herself into active police situations, and essentially entrapped dedicated public servants. Maya's testimony refuted these claims point by point. "I never once identified myself as anything other than a professor conducting research," she explained on the stand. "I asked reasonable questions, exercised my legal rights as a citizen, and observed officer responses. At no time did I suggest, request, or provoke any illegal or improper action. Officer Brennan and others made those choices independently, believing they were dealing with a civilian who had no power to hold them accountable. The most powerful moment came when several officers broke ranks to testify against Brennan. Officer Martinez described the years of intimidation and the Guardian clique's influence over promotions and assignments. Two rookie officers detailed being instructed by Brennan to target suspicious individuals with clear racial implications in the guidance. A dispatcher revealed calls from minority neighborhoods being deliberately delayed or downgraded in priority. As the trial continued, Maya worked to rebuild the department. New hiring practices emphasized psychological evaluation for bias, community service experience, and problem-solving skills over traditional metrics like military background or physical prowess. The first class of new recruits included 11 officers of color and 14 women, dramatically shifting the department's demographics. Statistical improvements began to show in the data: complaints down 30%, successful resolution of crimes up 17%, and use of force incidents decreased by nearly half. Former community critics became allies as they saw tangible changes. Jordan Williams' watchdog group was formalized as an official advisory board with real input on policies. Schools that had previously denied officers access now invited them for positive interaction programs. But resistance continued as well. Maya received death threats regularly. Her car was vandalized twice. Officers loyal to Brennan attempted to sabotage evidence in active cases, forcing Maya to implement new chain of custody procedures. During a critical vote of no confidence pushed by old guard officers, Maya stood before the department and challenged them directly. You can resist, change and be left behind, or you can help build a department that serves justice equally and makes every officer proud to wear the badge. The choice is yours, but the change is happening either way. The vote failed, with 60% of officers supporting Maya's continued leadership. It was far from unanimous, but it was enough to move forward. As her first month as chief concluded, Maya stood at her office window watching officers interact with citizens in the plaza below. For the first time since arriving in Westlake, she allowed herself a moment of cautious optimism. The hardest work still lay ahead, but the foundation for real transformation had been laid. 3 months after Maya's dramatic revelation, Westlake was a city in transition. Maya had finally moved into permanent housing, a modest 3-bedroom home in a racially mixed neighborhood near downtown. Though the harassment hadn't stopped entirely, anonymous phone calls in the night had given way to occasional nasty notes left on her porch, progress of a sort. Inside the department, structural changes were taking root. Every officer had completed 40 hours of intensive training on de-escalation techniques, implicit bias recognition, and community-oriented policing strategies. Body camera compliance had reached 98% with actual consequences for violations. The data showed measurable improvements: stops of minority drivers down by 40%, successful prosecutions up by 23%, and complaints against officers at their lowest level in 15 years. Officer Sarah Martinez, now Lieutenant Martinez, headed the newly formed Community Engagement Division with 7 officers under her command. The difference is night and day, Martinez told Maya during their weekly briefing. We're actually getting tips from neighborhoods that used to slam doors in our faces. People are bringing their kids to meet officers instead of hurrying them inside when patrol cars drive by. Maya nodded, pleased but not satisfied. We still have work to do. In the North District, some residents there feel we've abandoned proactive policing in favor of social work. Martinez smiled slightly. You mean the people who used to get special treatment are noticing they're now treated like everyone else? Exactly, Maya agreed. But perception matters. We need to show them that fair policing doesn't mean no policing, just better policing. Brennan's criminal trial had become the centerpiece of Westlake's reckoning with its past. Each day of testimony revealed deeper layers of corruption and bias within the former regime. The prosecution had built a meticulous case, not just about Brennan's assault on Maya, but the pattern of misconduct it represented. The defense strategy had shifted from denying Brennan's actions to contextualizing them as responses to a department under siege from criminals and a city leadership that didn't support officers. Officer Brennan made split-second decisions in high-pressure situations, his attorney argued. He protected this community for 20 years, while politicians and critics second-guessed from the safety of their offices. Maya's testimony as both victim and expert witness had been crucial. For 3 days, she had detailed her observations of the department's culture, connecting specific incidents to broader patterns and national best practices. What I witnessed in Westlake wasn't unique, she explained to the jury. These same patterns of in-group protection, racial disparity in enforcement, and resistance to oversight exist in many departments nationwide. What made Westlake notable was the brazenness with which these practices were conducted and the institutional support they received. During cross-examination, Brennan's attorney had attempted to portray Maya as an anti-police activist with a personal vendetta based on her brother's death years earlier. "Isn't it true that your brother was killed by police officers, Dr. Jackson?" he asked. "And isn't it true that this tragedy has colored your perception of police departments ever since?" Maya had remained composed. "My brother was killed by specific officers who violated their training and oath," she replied. "That tragedy showed me firsthand the devastating consequences when police power is misused. It didn't prejudice me against all officers, but it did commit me to ensuring accountability for those who abuse their authority." The most damaging testimony came from Brennan's fellow officers who had decided to break the blue wall of silence. One veteran officer described how Brennan had taught rookie officers to disable body cameras accidentally before certain interactions. Another detailed the point system Brennan's Guardian clique had used to reward aggressive enforcement in minority neighborhoods. A former dispatcher revealed how calls from different parts of town received dramatically different response priorities based on racial demographics rather than actual emergency status. As the trial neared its conclusion, Maya implemented another key reform: new hiring practices designed to create a department that reflected the community it served. "A police force should look like the people it protects," she explained at a press conference announcing the initiative. "Currently, our department is 87% white in a city that's 48% people of color. That changes today." The new recruitment program partnered with community colleges, churches, and civic organizations in underrepresented neighborhoods to identify potential candidates. Hiring criteria were rebalanced to emphasize communication skills, problem-solving ability, and community connection alongside traditional qualifications. The police union initially fought these changes, filing complaints and threatening legal action, but as public support for Maya's reforms grew, their position weakened. A citywide survey showed 65% approval for the new direction of the department, with support highest in neighborhoods that had historically experienced the most problematic policing. Even in resistant precincts, officers began to notice benefits to the new approach. Paperwork decreased as unnecessary stops declined. Civilian cooperation increased as trust built slowly. Some veteran officers who had initially viewed Maya with suspicion found themselves reluctantly acknowledging improvements. "I've been here 20 years, Sergeant Williams, a former Brennan ally, admitted during a staff meeting. "Never thought. I'd say this, but it's actually easier to do our jobs when people don't hate us on sight." Not everyone was won over. A core group of Brennan loyalists continued to resist, some openly, others through subtle sabotage and foot-dragging. Maya recognized the pattern from her previous reform work. "There's always a percentage who simply can't or won't adapt," she told Mayor Richardson during their monthly update. "Some will eventually retire, others will transfer out. The key is making sure they don't poison the department culture in the meantime." The mayor nodded, relieved by the progress, but still concerned about political blowback. The North Side Business Association is still pushing back hard. They claim crime is up in their district because officers are afraid to be proactive now. Maya slid a data report across the desk. Actual crime is down 7% citywide, including the North District. What's down significantly is pretextual stops and harassment of people for looking suspicious, which was never effective policing to begin with. The most dramatic moment in Brennan's trial came when Maya made a surprise recommendation during the sentencing phase. Rather than advocating for maximum prison time, she proposed a restorative justice approach. "Officer Brennan has committed serious crimes that demand accountability," she told the stunned courtroom. "But simply warehousing him in prison doesn't address the harm done to this community. I propose a structured program that would require him to meet with families affected by police misconduct, perform substantial community service in neighborhoods he once over-policed, and participate in police reform education programs." The recommendation sparked intense debate. Some community members felt it was too lenient. Others saw the wisdom in forcing Brennan to confront the human impact of the system he had perpetuated. The judge ultimately incorporated elements of Maya's proposal alongside a 5-year prison sentence, with the possibility of the final 2 years being converted to intensive community service if Brennan demonstrated genuine rehabilitation. As her first 100 days as chief concluded, Maya visited Brennan in the county jail where he awaited transfer to state prison. He had requested the meeting, to her surprise. The former officer appeared diminished in his orange jumpsuit, the swagger and certainty replaced by something more contemplative. "I still think you set me up," he said without preamble, as Maya took her seat across from him. "You came to Westlake looking for someone like me." Maya studied him for a moment. "I came to Westlake expecting to find exactly what I found, a department with deep cultural problems that manifested through the actions of individual officers. You weren't set up, Brennan. You were simply observed without the deference and fear you were accustomed to receiving." Brennan's jaw tightened. 20 years. I gave this city. My father served 40 before me. We kept people safe. Some people, Maya corrected, while actively endangering others through selective enforcement, excessive force, and the undermining of constitutional rights. That's not safety. It's control. For nearly an hour, they spoke about the roots of his behavior, the culture that had shaped him, and the possibility of redemption. Maya didn't expect a sudden epiphany or tearful confession, but she saw value in the conversation itself, in establishing that accountability was not the same as vengeance. As she left, Brennan asked one final question. "Why did you recommend that restorative justice stuff instead of pushing for the maximum sentence?" Maya paused at the door. "Because I've spent my career studying what actually changes police culture, Officer Brennan. It's never just about punishing individuals. It's about transforming systems. Your journey, whether toward insight or continued denial, becomes part of Westlake's story either way." She left him with that thought, walking back into the department. That was gradually becoming the professional, equitable organization she had envisioned from the start. The work was far from complete, but the foundation was firmly in place. Every statistical measure showed improvement. Every community survey indicated growing trust, and every new recruit represented the future Maya was building. One decision at a time. 1 year after Maya Jackson's undercover operation had exposed the rot within the Westlake Police Department, the city gathered for a commemoration that few would have thought possible 12 months earlier. The community center was filled beyond capacity as Mayor Richardson presented Maya with the key to the city. "When we recruited Dr. Jackson, we hoped for improvement," the mayor told the assembled crowd. "What we received was transformation. In 1 year, this department has become a national model for effective, equitable policing." The statistics supported his claim. Complaints against officers had decreased by 64%. Successful crime solving had increased by 31%. Use of force incidents had fallen by over 70%. Most remarkably, these improvements had occurred across all neighborhoods, breaking the pattern where affluent areas received protection while poorer districts experienced only enforcement. Earlier that week, Maya had received a prestigious Justice Department Award for her work in Westlake. The citation praised her courage in personally investigating departmental culture, commitment to evidence-based reforms, and remarkable success in transforming one of the nation's most troubled police departments. As Maya accepted the key to the city, She directed attention away from herself. "This transformation wasn't my work alone," she insisted. "It required officers willing to embrace change, community members brave enough to give us another chance, and city leadership with the political courage to support difficult decisions." She acknowledged Lieutenant Martinez, now Deputy Chief Martinez, whose promotion had been among Maya's most satisfying actions. Real change happens when good people, who were once silenced, find their voices and their power. Maya had just returned from witnessing the conclusion of Jason Brennan's trial. After multiple appeals had failed, he had been sentenced to 5 years in prison with the possibility of serving the final 2 under house arrest if he participated fully in a restorative justice program. What had surprised everyone, including Maya, was Brennan's statement to the court during final sentencing. "I still believe I was doing what I thought was right for most of my career," he had said, standing straight in his prison jumpsuit. "But I've had a year to reflect on what right really means and who gets to decide. I've started to understand that my definition of public safety excluded a lot of the public." He had turned to look directly at Maya. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm acknowledging that I enforced a system that protected some people at the expense of others, and I'm committed to understanding the damage that caused." The statement had fallen short of a full reckoning, but Maya recognized it as a significant shift from the defiant officer who had punched her a year earlier. Following the ceremony, Maya implemented the final phase of her reform plan, a permanent, powerful citizen oversight board with real authority. Unlike the toothless review panels that existed in many cities, Westlake's board had subpoena power, independent investigative resources, and direct input on policy decisions. "Accountability can't depend on who happens to be chief," Maya explained, at the board's first official meeting. "It must be structured into the system itself." The department Maya now led barely resembled the one she had investigated a year earlier. 40% of officers were people of color, up from just 5%. Gender diversity had similarly improved, with women comprising 35% of the force. The infamous Guardian clique had been completely dismantled, its members either terminated, resigned, or recommitted to new standards. Most importantly, the culture had shifted from warrior to guardian, from occupying force to community partner. Officers now received regular training in mental health response, cultural competency, and de-escalation tactics. Promotion criteria emphasized problem-solving and community engagement rather than arrest statistics. The old measures created perverse incentives, Maya explained to a group of visiting police executives who had come to study Westlake's transformation. "When you reward officers for maximum enforcement, you get maximum enforcement, whether it's necessary or not. When you reward actual problem-solving, you get creative solutions that build community trust." The department's success had made Maya a sought-after consultant nationally. She had launched a program to help other departments implement similar reforms, adapting the Westlake model to different community needs, while maintaining the core principles of accountability, transparency, and equal protection. One afternoon, Maya took a personal day and drove 2 hours to the cemetery where her brother James was buried. It had become an annual pilgrimage, a way to reconnect with the personal motivation behind her professional mission. "We're making progress, little brother," she said softly, placing flowers beside his headstone. "Not just in Westlake. Your story has helped change departments across the country." She wiped away a tear. "I still miss you every day, but I like to think you'd be proud of what your life has inspired." On her drive back to Westlake, Maya stopped to observe a traffic stop in progress. A young black woman had been pulled over by a Westlake officer. From a discreet distance, Maya watched the interaction unfold. The officer approached respectfully, explained the reason for the stop, and maintained a professional demeanor throughout. The driver, notably, showed no signs of the terror that had once been common in such encounters. When the stop concluded with a warning rather than a ticket, the officer and driver parted with a respectful nod. Maya smiled slightly. Single interactions didn't prove systemic change, but they reflected it. The fear that had once defined police encounters in certain communities was gradually being replaced by professional respect on both sides. The following week brought the most unexpected development of all. Jason Brennan, granted a supervised release for the event, attended the dedication of a memorial for victims of police violence in Westlake. The memorial, a simple stone marker with the names of 12 individuals who had died during police encounters over the past 30 years, stood in the park where Brennan had once harassed black teenagers for playing basketball. As part of his restorative justice program, Brennan had met with the families of several victims, listening to their stories and beginning to comprehend the full impact of the system he had enforced. In a moment captured by local media, Brennan knelt before the memorial, head bowed. The gesture from a man who had once embodied the department's toxic culture symbolized the possibility of individual transformation alongside institutional change. Maya watched from a distance, neither celebrating nor dismissing the moment. True change required more than symbolic gestures, but symbols mattered too. That evening, Maya gave an interview to a national news program about Westlake's journey. "The question I'm asked most frequently is whether our model can work elsewhere," she told the interviewer. "The answer is yes, with two essential conditions: leadership with the courage to face uncomfortable truths, and communities willing to participate in the solution rather than just demanding it." "And what about the officers themselves?" The interviewer asked. "Many police organizations claim these kinds of reforms undermine officer authority and make communities less safe." Maya smiled slightly. "I'd suggest looking at our results. Crime is down. Officer injuries are down. Community trust is up. We've proven that equitable policing isn't just morally right, it's pragmatically superior. Officers in Westlake now report higher job satisfaction than before our reforms because they're doing work that actually makes a difference rather than just generating statistics." As the program concluded, Maya reflected on the past year. The transformation remained incomplete, the work ongoing. Some officers still resisted change, some community members still harbored distrust, some political forces still pushed for a return to the old ways. But the foundation had been laid for something previously thought impossible: a police department that truly protected and served all citizens equally, without fear or favor. Maya Jackson, once an outsider who had experienced the department's worst behavior firsthand, had created the conditions for that transformation through a simple but powerful approach, holding the powerful accountable to the same standards as the powerless. In her office, Maya kept a small framed photo of her brother alongside her degrees and commendations. Next to it now stood a new picture: the diverse graduating class of Westlake's latest police academy, their faces reflecting the community they would serve. The journey from that first bloody confrontation with Officer Brennan to this moment of genuine progress had been difficult, but the results spoke for themselves. Westlake had become proof that change was possible, that justice could prevail, that systems built on inequality could be dismantled and rebuilt with equality at their core. What do you think about Maya's approach to reforming the police department? Was her undercover investigation justified, or should she have taken a more traditional approach? Comment below with your thoughts on how we can improve policing in our communities. If you found Maya's story inspiring, please hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful stories of justice and transformation. Share this video with someone who needs to believe that change is possible, even in the most entrenched systems. Thank you for joining me on this journey through one woman's fight to create the justice she wished her brother had received. Until next time, remember that true change begins with courage and continues through persistence. Maya Jackson's journey teaches us that true change requires courage to expose uncomfortable truths. By experiencing discrimination firsthand, she gained powerful insights no official report could provide. The story reveals how racism becomes institutionalized when good people remain silent and systems protect those who abuse power. Transformation requires more than removing bad apples. It demands rebuilding systems that enable prejudice to thrive. The most profound lesson is that accountability creates better outcomes for everyone. When Westlake's officers began serving all citizens equally, crime decreased, while community trust and officer satisfaction increased. Justice isn't a zero-sum game where protecting minorities means compromising safety. Fair policing creates safer communities overall. We also learn that meaningful change happens through both personal and institutional transformation. Brennan's journey from defiant racist to someone beginning to acknowledge harm reflects how individuals can evolve when forced to confront their actions' consequences. Meanwhile, systemic changes, diverse hiring, objective metrics, civilian oversight ensure reforms outlast any single leader. Perhaps most importantly, the story reminds us that injustice persists because we allow it to. When Maya uncovered racism, she didn't simply document it, she methodically dismantled it. Real change doesn't come from wishful thinking or symbolic gestures, but from courageous people willing to face resistance while rebuilding broken systems from the ground up. What systems of injustice exist in your community that need someone brave enough to challenge them? Have you ever witnessed discrimination and stayed silent, or spoken up like Maya did? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story of transformation inspired you, hit that like button to help others find it too. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories of courage against injustice, and share this video with someone who needs to believe that positive change is possible, even in deeply flawed systems. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Maya's fight for justice. Remember, in the words of Maya herself, true change begins with courage and continues through persistence. Stay strong, stay vigilant, and never stop working toward a more just world.